welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. My name is Joe, and I'm so happy you're here. This is the place where book lovers, authors, and industry insiders come together to talk about the stories we love and the impact they have. Before we dive in, don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to the Libby app YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. If you love what we're doing, leave a review or drop a comment. It helps more book lovers find us. Now today's episode is all about book bans and the state of reading today. So, what is book banning? Book bans are a form of censorship that have been around for centuries. Shakespeare was censored by Queen Elizabeth I. Simply banning a book calls for its removal from a library shelf, school library, public library, private, etc. Program Director of PEN America's Freedom to Read, Casey Meehan, says, "We define a book ban as any action taken against a book based on its content that leads to a previously accessible book being completely removed from availability for students or where access to a book is restricted or diminished. This includes its removal or the time that it's removed while a book ban is being decided on." Whereas Emily Drabinski, 2023-2024 ALA president, says that a book ban is the removal of a title from a library because someone considers it harmful or dangerous. A challenge is when someone raises an objection to a library material or program or a service. Reconsideration is the formal process libraries go through to determine whether a book meets the library's selection criteria. We are seeing more book bans now than during the Red Scare and Age of McCarthyism in the 1950s. I've included a link to two of the very helpful articles I read while summarizing this info, some of the quotes that you heard today. One from NPR, "What's a Book Ban Anyway? Depends on Who You Ask," and "Manuscripts Don't Burn, A Timeline of Literary Censorship, Destruction, and Liberation" from PEN America. Both of those are linked in the show notes. With that said, I can't wait for you to hear from my guest hosts today. Joining in this discussion are Amanda Jones, Kalynn Bayron, and Pat Scales, as well as an additional segment with Skip Dye. Amanda Jones is an American librarian and anti-censorship advocate. Jones has been heavily involved in the anti-book banning movements in the state of Louisiana and throughout the United States. In 2023, she was awarded the American Association of School Librarians Intellectual Freedom Award and the American Library Association's Paul Howard Award for Courage. In 2022, Jones received national news coverage after filing a defamation and harassment lawsuit against a conservative political group. She has received death threats and been called every name in the book for fighting for the right to read. Her book, That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America, released in August 2024 from Bloomsbury. You can find Amanda on Instagram at @ThatLibrarianJones. Kalynn Bayron is the New York Times and indie bestselling author of the YA fantasy novels Cinderella is Dead and This Poison Heart. Her latest works include the YA horror novel You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight and the middle grade paranormal adventure The Vanquishers. She is a CILIP Carnegie Medal nominee, a Bram Stoker Award nominee, a Locus Award finalist, and the recipient of the 2022 Randall Keenan Award for Black LGBTQ fiction. She is a classically trained vocalist and a musical theater enthusiast. When she's not writing, you can find her watching scary movies and spending time with her family. And she is at Kalynn Bayron. Pat Scales is a retired middle and high school librarian whose programs have been featured on The Today Show and in various professional journals. She has also served as an adjunct instructor of children's and young adult literature at Furman University and has been a guest lecturer at universities across the nation. A First Amendment advocate, she is a former chair of ALA's Intellectual Freedom Committee and serves on the board of advisors of the National Coalition Against Censorship. She's a past president of the Association of Library Service for Children and in 2011 received the Distinguished Service Award. Pat Scales is a retired middle and high school librarian whose programs have been featured on The Today Show and in various professional journals. She has also served as an adjunct instructor of children's and young adult literature at Furman University and has been a guest lecturer at universities across the nation. A First Amendment advocate, she is a former chair of ALA's Intellectual Freedom Committee and serves on the board of advisors of the National Coalition Against Censorship. She is a past president of the Association of Library Service for Children and in 2011 received the Distinguished Service Award. So first you can listen to my conversation with this group of three, and then following that will be my conversation with Skip Dye. Skip Dye is the Senior Vice President and Director of Sales Operations and Library Sales, Library Marketing and Sales at Penguin Random House. The American Library Association has made him an honorary lifetime member for his long-standing support to America's libraries and to intellectual freedom. Skip advocates for libraries, authors, and readers in addition to being a fierce advocate for the freedom to read. He heads PRH's Intellectual Freedom Task Force, which focuses on public awareness, author education, employee support, and legal action against state laws that attempt to censor books. Skip co-chaired the ALA Rebranding Project, a task aimed at increasing ALA's visibility beyond the library sector and to attract library supporters and advocates. He now serves as the chair of the ALA Public Partner Steering Committee, and you can find out more and read the full post I borrowed from ALA in the link in the episode description. With that, let's turn the page and dive on in. Well, thank you all so much for being here to talk book bans with me today. I want to give my wonderful guest hosts a moment to introduce themselves. We'll go around the room. I'll use the alphabet as my guide. So Amanda, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Jones. I'm a 24-year educator in Louisiana. I was the 2021 School Library Journal Librarian of the Year. I'm a co-founding member of Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship. I feel very strongly about standing up for intellectual freedom. I have a book out called That Librarian, The Fight Against Book Banning in America. And this coming fall, I'll be featured in the documentary The Librarians, directed by Kim A. Snyder, executive produced by Sarah Jessica Parker.
Incredible. Oh, incredible. I cannot wait to watch that. Kalynn, how about you?
So my name is Kalynn Bayron. I am a middle grade and young adult author. I write mostly fiction, lots of fantasy, some scary stories in there as well. My book, Cinderella is Dead, has been at the center of lots of book banning and challenges. This is an issue that is really close to my heart and really personal for me. I have another young adult horror novel coming out this fall in September 30th. It's called Make Me a Monster. And so I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm also very excited for that. As a lover of your books, I cannot wait to pick up anything that you put out. And then Pat, please.
Okay, my name is Pat Scales. I'm a retired school librarian. I spent most of my years in a middle school and finished my career at a high school for the arts. And I have to say, I came at this whole book banning thing from a proactive way. My program, Communicate Through Literature, was featured on the Today Show in the early 1980s. And that's really what got me started with this whole thing with intellectual freedom. I do have a book with Source Books called Banned Books for Children. It's actually been expanded, but I had done a book for ALA called Teaching Banned Books because I feel strongly that we need to engage kids in the conversation about these issues as well. And so Source Books actually bought Teaching Banned Books from ALA, and we did expand it a little. So that's out now in paperback so that it's very affordable price.
It's always wonderful to see guides like yours that give helpful comps that I think whether you are a teacher, whether you are a parent who also has and shares this passion that we are going to get into today, the importance of protecting our right to read, there are ways that we can all use different resources in ways that we might not expect to expand our horizons. Now, there's no good way to get into the state that we are in today when it comes to banned books in this conversation, but let's look at the landscape today. I will open up the room. All of you, please. What has the trend of book bans been in recent history? If we were to look at the last 10 years before we even look at the last, let's say, 3.
Well, I think early on, maybe even 10 years back, or certainly 20 years back, and most of the challenges came from parents, individual parents who may just really have, in their view, a legitimate reason for, challenging a book. And those were not that hard to handle because you just looked to policy, you could talk them through it. And a parent should be able to choose for their child, but not for everyone else's child. And you could make that point. It's become harder now because it's become so political.
I noticed over the course of couple of decades in education, that it started out where challenges, reconsiderations came up from a place of like a good intentions from parents who are just concerned about their child. But now also what we're seeing is mass challenges, 200 and 300 at one time. I know there's a man in Florida that's proud that he's challenged 1,000 books. And like Pat said, it's become political. So you're seeing political groups jump in, and you're seeing these political groups that are filing challenges. A lot of religion is being used now in challenges. A lot of churches are coming together in the name of religion to try to ban books. So I've seen that shift in recent years.
Mhm.
And what are the books that are? Oh, sorry, Kalynn.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that just kind of touching on something that we kind of spoke about before we hit record, but these so-called advocacy groups, like Moms for Liberty, that have gotten really well organized and have caused a lot of issues. And I'm coming at this from, an author's point of view, but also as a parent with young kids in school and having lived in Texas. And it's just like they're really well organized, and that is causing. I think that's also causing a lot of issues for us.
It is interesting because I think, right, when you look at the history of, okay, I have a legitimate concern, and in the days of walking through, I hear your concern. This does not violate our policy, but you retain the right to say, I don't want my child to read this. That was one thing, and now we've seen such a shift to it's an attack on a lot of different things. What books, let's just put it out there, what books are being targeted right now? What are we seeing the most challenges on when we're talking 1,000 bans in Florida and similarly across the American South?
The LGBTQ and books by and about people of color, black or brown people. And that's pretty much what we can sum it.
I
Yeah,
know it. I
yeah.
know it goes without saying, but that is one of those things that, like, let's just, yeah, let the guy with the pink beard force everyone to spell it out. Like, yeah, we are attacking queer books. We're attacking books written by people of color. It is it's something.
Well, you look at the most challenged book of last year. ALA just came out with their list of, and the number one most challenged book last year was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, Black queer author. Number one, I mean, but you look down the list, it's all the, gender queer. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. They're trying to rewrite history. They're trying to other people. They're trying to take away stories. And by taking away those stories, they're trying to suppress those people, the people that write, the authors or the characters from the LGBTQ plus community and people of color. They're trying to eradicate those stories across the board. And to me, that's just shameful.
And as we see formats change, as we see access and availability change, because kids might be ready to pick up because they see this graphic novel that, as you said, genderqueer, Maya Kobabe, like a brilliant graphic novel challenged. We see the availability of audiobooks within school and public libraries that are making these stories more accessible. So what does this kind of impact have on a community? I know this seems, but we're putting this out there for if you are walking into book bans right now to learn more, to where we will end up at the end of this conversation. How does this impact schools? How does this impact libraries? Because I think that is the thing that we're also seeing very different than maybe in years past, is that this is hitting the public library space. This is hitting a bigger field now more than ever.
Yeah, last year, ALA recorded that the book bans in public libraries went up 92%. And that was a greater increase than schools, because schools have always dealt with it more, but public libraries now, in fact, our public library here in Greenville is being sued by, 4 plaintiffs. The ACLU is suing them because they not only removed 30 adult books, they they also put on a restricted shelf books for youth that deal with LGBTQ issues, and now they're facing a lawsuit. So that's a good thing. The community is saying enough is enough.
Good.
Yeah, there are these kind of financial consequences for our
Mhm.
library systems. Their funds are getting cut if they keep inclusive books on the shelf. That leads to a loss for the library, its staff, its patrons, everyone, the entire community. And it's really hard to quantify the kind of loss of access to
Right.
that information, because how difficult is it to measure um, you know the loss of access to a story that might just give you a little bit of hope, make you feel like you're not alone. How do we how do you kind of roll that into everything else that's going on? It's incredibly disheartening.
Absolutely. As a queer kid who grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, I often say now on this show how grateful I am to see books that are representation across the board, whether it is a book I needed when I was a kid, or if it was a book I know one of my friends needed when we were kids. Like, that is something I constantly praise. But to your same point, Kalynn, of like, yeah, we can't quantify that alone. When libraries are being attacked, they're losing their funding because they're keeping these, air quotes on that for the listeners, these books on the shelves. It also impacts what they're able to offer in the grander scale. I mean, I saw an article not too long ago about a library that said there would be certain libraries in their system that could only be children's libraries, and the children could not step into the adult library. But that shuts down rural community libraries who cannot keep up with their own system's standards. And so there were libraries that were basically putting tents of children's books outside. But if mom needs to take baby in to go change and she needs to use the bathroom, she can't bring that child in with her. That kid has to stay in the tent because they're not allowed in with mom. Like, there are so many extremes.
It's there's the extremes is the word I would say. It's the word that comes to mind because not only is extremism across the board, we're seeing the vilification of anyone, whether it's a teacher or a librarian or an author who wants to stand in the way of those people from getting their way. Completely harassed. Librarians and educators are being completely harassed and vilified. But there's full scale assaults on libraries. I know in my community, um, in our public library system, we've had a full scale assault on our public library, the librarians, and anyone who supports our library for the past 2.5 years. I'm talking screaming matches, um, not by the supporters of the library, from the opposite end, but there are screaming matches at boards. People are getting on social media and trying to ruin people's lives because they say they're for intellectual freedom. My community is in turmoil. Like, that's for 2.5 years. There's been this fight over libraries, but what is essentially is there are extremists that, whether they're from your town or your community or from outside and they come in to cause issues, it's people that don't understand how libraries are work, policies and procedures already in place, and they're trying to take over. And if they can't take over by trying to dictate what's on the shelves, they then go for the funding like y'all were discussing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's looking for control at any place possible. Now, Amanda, I would not ask you to spoil your book, but I think you know quite a bit about the attacks that happen. Is there anything you want to share here in this space? And then, of course, all of your books will be linked in the show notes, but check out that librarian.
So my book is about my personal experience. I went and spoke. I'm a school librarian, but my fight has been in the public library because thankfully my school has been okay. But I went and spoke 2.5, 3 years ago at a public library board meeting for the library. I've had a library card since I was 5 in my community. I'm 46 now. And I went and spoke and defended my library against people that wanted to ban books. And I was targeted and harassed by white Christian nationals. I'm still being targeted and harassed, to the point where they've tried. I'm constantly harassed at work. I'm harassed when I go out in public. I've basically become a shut-in in my own home, in my small community. And, that's what they do. They want to silence people who are trying to speak out. And so, I did the opposite and I refused to be silent. And so I wrote a book about it. But my story is not unique. This is happening to librarians all across the United States. The other day I said it's happening to thousands, and someone approached me and they're like, really, thousands? And I'm like, yes. I can name 100 just in my state. I can name 40 or 50 from South Carolina.
Mhm.
I look at Pat because she's from South Carolina. I can name people. Librarians are being vilified all over, to the point where they're trying to get us fired, but they're like death threats. That's not normal behavior. That's just not normal.
I just like having seen the things that have been sent to you, it blows your mind. I mean, and so to this group, what has your work, what emotional response have you had? Where do your feelings lie? What has like ignited within you on fighting for the right to read, on having your work silenced, on all of this?
Well, for me, I think there's a couple things. There's all of this has, it hasn't dissuaded, it hasn't put me off of
Mhm.
doing what I need to do, writing the stories that I want to write, especially because most of my work centers queer Black girls. But it makes me think about the kind of pitfalls that I'm going to have to navigate in this space, and I sometimes worry about the mental toll that it takes on me and my family, because I understand, Amanda, like those death threats, the harassment. I get that too, and it's awful, and um, it's just an awful way to kind of navigate creativity, right? While you're trying to write stories for kids, you have adults losing their entire minds in your inbox, and so I think about that, but I ultimately what it comes down to for me is that I wrote, my debut and all of my work really. It's writing towards a younger version of myself, a 15 or 16-year-old version of myself who just really wanted to see a queer Black girl at the center of a story and see her get a happy ending. And I know that I'm not the only one who feels like that. There are still readers out there who need to see that. And so I always keep my readers or potential readers in the back of my mind. I know that this work is for them. And I do a lot of school visits. I do a lot of work within my community to be in community with young readers. And I know that they are facing the same types of worries and doubts and fears that I had when I was younger. And so they need these stories, and not just by me, but by my colleagues who are doing amazing work. Um, it's they are at the forefront of my mind when I'm navigating all of this. I always return to them and what they need, and I think that's more important than anything else.
It's so impactful, I can't think of the right word to say, like, thank other than, like, thank you, to be able and willing to fight when part of what you do requires you to be a public presence. I mean, part of getting your book in front of people is putting yourself in the same space that opens you up for attack, for angry DMs, for nasty comments, and the ability to say, my I can find my peace while also still fighting for what I know I need and what I want for my community.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a fragile balance, I think.
Sure.
I'm very happy to be in the fight alongside so many other wonderful professionals who are, we're fighting the good fight, we're doing the good work, and we just have to keep on keeping on for the time
Yes.
being.
Something I always come back to, there was a Human Rights Coalition study done in 2023 um, on how many of our LGBTQ plus students feel unsafe at school, but they said that 9 out of 10 feel the safest in the school library. And to me, as the school librarian, I'm the only person on my campus that actively teaches every single child on my campus. And because I'm in such a small community, I'm the only middle school librarian. So every child in my community will have me as a librarian. And that's a huge responsibility that I don't take lightly. And I think that every child in our community, I'm in middle school, so every child at my school, but in our community, they deserve to see themselves and their families represented on the stories on the shelves. But also, they deserve to read about other people that aren't like them, because that's how you learn to be empathetic, and that's how you
Yes.
learn to be a better person. So I don't take this responsibility lightly, and I also I come from a place of privilege. And so to me, I heard author Samira Ahmed say once that, use your power and privilege for purpose. And so to the point where I got it tattooed on my wrist to remind me, because I am in a place of power and privilege. And so if I don't use it for a purpose, that's a waste. And so I take my job seriously. I love these kids, and but I don't just love one group. I love all of them. And I think all of them deserve to feel seen and supported and loved and safe in the school library. And that starts with the books that are on the shelves.
And that's such a distinction, love. You come from a place of love, love for everyone. And you don't have to know everyone to have respect and love for the people who are around you, whether you interact with them very surface level or you form a deep, lasting bond. But it's important to come at things from compassion rather than what we're seeing, that is fear, that is attack, that is hate in most situations right now. Now, Kalynn, I wanted to take a step back. Have you heard from readers reading your books despite the book bans in their area, despite everything? What are you hearing? What are you hearing from the school visits, from people online?
Yeah, I do. I hear from like I said, I'm in schools quite often, both virtually and in person. To really, I think it's important if you're writing for young readers that you have to be in community with them. And so I'm hearing from them that they want more stories. That's all they want. They just want a good story. They just want to feel included. They want to feel seen and heard. But one thing that I think about pretty often is when some of my work is challenged or banned somewhere, it is always the young readers who come out to they show up and they show out for me every single time. They will go and do book drives, and they'll purchase copies of the book, and they will give it away to people for free. They will make sure that people can still get the stories. And I think that that's why I do what I do. I write so that these stories can get into the hands of the young readers who need them most. And my kind of I'm always trying to kind of extend my thanks to my young readers, because they are out there doing this work too. These young people see these bans and these challenges, and they step up and they speak out. And so it's a good feeling to know that that they're there, and they're so smart, and they're so innovative, and they're so creative, and they're on TikTok, which I cannot. I'm an old, so I can't do TikTok as well as they can. But it's really wonderful to see them come out. I wish they didn't have to be so brave. I wish they didn't have to shoulder any of that burden. It's not their job. But they have taken some of that on willingly, and I'm really appreciative of that. I'm inspired by them every single day.
And notoriously one of the hardest groups to reach, your audience, in terms of like, if I were to try to say, hey teens, would you like to talk? They'd be like, no, not you. But but the fact that they are impassioned and they know this is wrong and we can change it gives me so much hope.
Me too. Yeah.
Now, Pat, with your experience, I was reading some of scales on censorship from School Library Journal in prep for this. Just so many wonderful things throughout the years. What have you seen as the biggest impact against school libraries, and then just in general, the biggest impact that we can do to support the schools, to support the public libraries?
I think we have to be in touch with the politicians. we unfortunately in many states have legislation that's proposed to jail librarians and teachers, and there's a proposed one in this state, and but we're not the only ones that by their brand of obscenity. And so define obscenity. You can't, even the courts have not been able to define pornography, and yet people use that term so loosely. And so I think we have to write to our state and federal politicians. Most of them won't get back with us, but on the other hand, we have to keep trying. They don't hear from, if they don't hear from us, they don't know. So we have to keep doing that. I think we have to join the rallies that are going on throughout the nation, because it's all related, really, if you think
Right.
about it. And especially with D&I and all of that, it's all related. So we need to join the rallies. I think, and I've been trying to do this in recent years, and I think we need to speak to as many like civic groups or just groups other than speaking to ourselves. Because, I mean, I present at ALA all the time, and I go to state conferences, but what about local Rotary clubs or AUW chapters, which I've done it locally as well as statewide, and they're always shocked. Most people truly, I think, are not paying attention to know what's going on. So I think that once you tell them, maybe they'll start monitoring it more, and then maybe they'll jump in to try to help. And so I think if anything, over the years, we might have been guilty about just talking to each other more than we are talking, broadly.
Of course.
Widely. So I think we need to use every opportunity we can to speak with groups other than ourselves.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think something we found success with in Louisiana, two things that Pat said: email your or call and email your contact your legislator. I'm a member of Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship, and we sent him 44,000 emails to our legislature last year against the anti-library bills. We defeated 8 of the 9, so none of them emailed us back. But
Yeah.
but they logged them. And so and they even said it in committee, like we were going to have some of those laws in Louisiana. And they said, oh, well, we've had so many thousands of emails against this bill, but only 2 for it. So I think that's, definitely what you need to do. But also, like what Pat says with the other groups, we worked really hard to build a coalition here in Louisiana. We've, we go in and we speak with League of Women Voters, 10,000 Women of Louisiana, Forum for Equality, Louisiana Trans Advocates. I've even spoken with Planned Parenthood, because even though we all have our different causes, at the back of the cause is that we all agree on human rights issues. And so we all want to help each other. So when you build a coalition of like-minded groups, that even though you have your different causes, there's strength in numbers. And so I talk about this in my book, how I just felt like one wheel spinning. And I credit John Kraska with Every Library for telling me the importance of coalition building, because once I set in motion to join forces with all these different coalitions, I knew I wasn't just one wheel. I became like this 18-wheeler. And we collectively rolled through the legislature last year to the point that this year we have 0 pro-censorship bills in the legislature. And I think it's a part of contacting legislators and also joining and building that coalition. I will also advise, almost every state has a grassroots organization. We have Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship. I know there's Utah Reads, there's Texas Freedom to Read Project, there's Florida Freedom to Read. There's so many organizations already out there that will teach you, if you don't have one in your state, how to do that for yourself. But we've got to build those organizations at the local level.
And to bring back that point of send that email, because I think we all get fatigued at some point and we go like, well, they don't even read this, but someone does. Someone puts it into a system. It makes a difference. Like any action is a helpful action. Support your library by attending the programs that they offer, register for things, do the classes, borrow the books, anything to keep the importance of the library moving and thriving builds that in the community. Then sending those emails to the people in power that, hey, I am one of your constituents and I have an opinion on this. So since we have the power of the internet on our side right now, would you all give like that 30-second elevator pitch of this is what is happening with book bans and this is why you need to care about it? Because if that gets clipped, if that section blows up on TikTok and they hear Amanda Jones, that librarian, talking about it, if they hear Pat Scales, our First Amendment advocate, if they hear Kalynn Bayron, their beloved author, they're going to share. They're going to do it. So if you could each say, like, this is what's happening right now, this is why you should care, and this is what you can do, I think that would mean a lot to people.
I'll say reading creates, it fosters an environment of compassion and empathy and understanding, not just of yourself, but of your community members. And I think it is the most important thing that we can do for our young people is to read to them and to have them read. It is that important. We are talking about the maintenance and continuation of our communities, of our community building efforts. We have to be in community with each other, and we can start to do that by reading, by sharing stories. Stories help us figure out where we've been, where we can go, what's possible. We have to protect the right to read. We have to protect it. It is important. It is essential to our development and understanding. We have to protect it. It is that important. And I cannot overemphasize how much reading for young people is key in building those strong communities. We have to start with our young people, and they need access to books about themselves and about their community members, so that they can foster that empathy and compassion and understanding.
I would agree with all of that. So to take a different approach, I was lecturing with a university class last year, and I had someone ask me how I remained hopeful, because I try always when I'm doing these presentations to present some hope. I mean, I don't want to ever give a university student, I don't want them to feel hopeless when they're about to enter the profession, you know. And I said, I remain hopeful because I believe in young people, and I believe they will be the ones that will make a difference. They will be the ones to make a change. So if you're a young person out there, be the person to make the change. Speak up. Every time we listen to someone's opinion, we've practiced the principles of intellectual freedom. But these groups don't want our opinions, but we have to give them our opinion anyway. And so please know that as a young reader, as parents of young readers, it's very important to engage readers in their opinion. And then in that way, we role model. We are modeling the principles of intellectual freedom.
Just from personal experience as a former child and as a parent and an educator, books save lives. They create empathy, and stories bring us together. And what we're seeing right now is a full-scale assault on stories, people, and libraries as institutions. And, you know, libraries are one of the last places we can go to for free resources. And if you think about what's going to happen if the library closes down, the most vulnerable people in the community are going to be the ones affected by it. And so I think it's so important to speak out for our libraries. And a lot of people, you know, think, oh, I'm just one person. But, you know, I was just one person and I went and spoke. And, you know, I think about how I went and spoke because I wanted to protect the stories like Alice Walker's Color Purple from being banned from the shelves. And, you know, Alice Walker once said that the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. We all have power. We all have that power to protect our libraries so that we can, you know, create a better society, build empathy, and stop erasing history.
Absolutely. I mean, you all have put it just so beautifully. There is so much here, and the most important thing to remember is that you can be the person. You can be the person who stands up and who says, I don't agree with this. That can take many forms. You can attend those school board meetings. You should make your voice heard. If you are a parent and you have children that you want to raise in a way that you agree with, that you want them to receive an education that you can agree with, go to those board meetings. Support your libraries, buy banned books, make resources available in your community when they are being challenged. If you are going to, make kind of like a meal train of banned books that have been pulled off the shelves and distribute them, no one can censor the little free library in your front yard. So whatever your stand looks like, remember that you can do it, that we have the ability to do that. What gives you all hope when you are having just a really rough day? How do you keep this spirit moving?
So I was talking to George M. Johnson about this past weekend, actually. And we were on a panel together. And they said that there's going to be hopelessness in this fight. Anytime you're trying to fight and you're being yelled at and, called horrible names, you're going to feel hopeless at some point. But the hopelessness is what gives you the power. It can be the catalyst. So the hopelessness can be a catalyst to push forward. And so, that's where the power of resistance resides. And what gives me hope, though, the biggest hope is the kids. I see how kind and empathetic they are as my students with each other. And I think that once they grow up and take over the world, we're going to have a better society. But I'm looking at kids right now, like there's a group called Dalo in South Carolina that is just amazing. They go and speak at school board meetings and public library board meetings, and they're in a documentary called Band Together. When they get together, students get together for action. They're so powerful. That's just seeing the kids want a better world and a better future is what gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we are proud to have Band Together on Canopy. Just slipping the plug in there, but I mean, it's a brilliant documentary.
It's an amazing documentary. And I think we have to look nationwide. Kids are speaking up all over the nation. I mean, there's a group in New York that's done things. I did a Zoom interview with a bookstore person in Iowa that was doing a book club for middle schoolers in the bookstore. And she wanted pointers from me on how to approach certain issues. And so those are good things. I mean, sometimes it's happening outside of school or outside the library. It doesn't mean you aren't supporting the school and supporting the library and doing these things. But the students do have a voice. And sometimes we have to remind adults that want to complain about kids. Tinker versus Des Moines, Iowa certainly said you did not give up your first free speech rights at the schoolhouse gate. That's what came out of that case. And so we need to be pushing that home and reminding kids, because a lot of kids don't know they have those rights because they're not told they have those rights. And I've gotten a lot of questions for School Library Journal over the years where principals were trying to shut down kids' ability to go march in a Black Lives Matter movement over the weekend. They can't tell them they can't do that. I mean, it's not even on school time, but they will do it. I mean, they will try it. And so the young people need to know that they've got these rights and they can
use them.
Rights. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For me, I think I'll just echo all the sentiments that have already been spoken about here. It really is about the youth. It really is about the young people who are out here making their voices heard. And I have been to schools in Salt Lake City and Topeka and San Antonio and Miami and Tallahassee and all across the states. And everywhere I go, there are young readers who are curious, and they are, like I said, they're so smart, they're so creative. They want these stories, and they are willing to say to the people around them, hey, we want to read this. We want to read these stories. And I think that is a very powerful thing. And I think we owe them our own efforts because they are doing so much. We, as the adults in this, the adults in the room, I think we owe them our continued pushback against censorship.
Absolutely. I think we can show them the support so that, as Pat was saying, they can embrace their power. They can keep the rights that they have. That if we show them that, hey, you're right. If you want to do this, I am behind you. I am with you. Absolutely incredible. I want to just say anything that you want to say right now, because I know I have to let you all go soon and I don't want to let any of you go, but I want to make sure that you all have a moment to just say the point that maybe I didn't ask you about, the thing in your notes, the thing in your head that you've been thinking of, the message to the listeners. If there is someone who is on the fence, if there is someone who needs to hear it, anything from the group that you want to make sure is said today.
I would like to say that intellectual freedom and the freedom to read, which freedom to read is part of intellectual freedom, is about respect. Censorship is about disrespect. That's my last.
Absolutely. I love it. That's a perfect button.
I'll say that I think the next few years are going to be difficult. But what I think is that the pendulum, I'm already seeing the pendulum swing back the other way in areas that have already been fighting for longer than others. Some of these groups have gone too far too fast. And so I am seeing, like in my area, it's swinging back. And I'm seeing in areas like even in Florida where the governor kind of backed off on some of that. But it's going to take all of us speaking out. And I forget who said attend. I think it was Pat said attend the rallies and write your emails. And it's going to take all of us collectively working together. And the final thing I'm going to say, if you haven't figured out, I love to quote people. But Stacey Abrams, I heard her speak, and her mom is a retired librarian. And Stacey said that even if we lose, because we're going to win some skirmishes and we're going to lose some skirmishes, but even when we lose, just by speaking out, we're making progress. And we have to measure success and progress and not victories. And so people need to take that to heart. We've got to be in it for the long haul because intellectual freedom is so important. The opposite would be complete everything censored and people are controlling what we're reading. And so, obviously I'm not for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think please just get involved. If you have the capacity to get involved in some way, please do. Go to your school board meetings, go to your city council meetings, stay informed, because the powers that be try to do a lot of this stuff in the dark where they think you won't see it. And I think we have to let them know that we see what they're doing, and that we don't agree, and that we will be vocal in our opposition to that. So please get involved. If you can show up and speak out, that's great. If you can email, if you can call, whatever you can do, it helps. Please just step in when you have the ability to do so.
Without a doubt. You are all incredible. You have all ended in the most perfect way to hit absolutely every point we could have needed to make to say, like, these things. But before we wrap up, I want to again go around the room and we'll use the alphabet to guide us again. Tell folks, if you would like, where they can find you online and anything you might be working on, if there's anything you'd like to promote. Amanda, you're right at the beginning of the alphabet.
I have a website, librarianjones.com, and that is the same handle I use on Blue Sky. So usually you can find me on Blue Sky at librarianjones.com or on Instagram at thatlibrarianjones. It's named after my book, That Librarian, which is coming out in paperback in September with an updated afterword. People keep asking me what happened. What's happened since the book came out? So there's an afterword. It is published by Bloomsbury. The paperback will be out in the fall, in September.
That's amazing. We love an updated afterword. We love a little bit more to the story. Kalynn, how about you?
I am at Kalynn Bayron on Instagram, and I'm also Kalynn Bayron over on Blue Sky. And I'm also on Threads, but I'm actually unhinged on Threads. So you have been warned if you check me out over there. I have a book coming out in September. Make Me a Monster is a young adult horror novel. That's September 30th. And you can always check up on me at my website, which is just kalynnbayron.com.
Perfect. And then Pat.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook, just under Pat Scales, and on Instagram at PR Scales. And I'm not on Blue Sky yet. I need to be, and I will get on because I, for obvious reasons, got off of Twitter and then X the minute
Mhm.
all the junk started happening. So those are the best places to find me right there.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time and sharing your stories and your thoughts and your opinions and your combined. We have so many years of knowledge in this room. I can't even comprehend it. Thank you all. And listeners, let's go to our next segment. Well, Skip, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Joe, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is so incredible to get to talk to you anytime, but especially about book bans and kind of the state of reading that we're in today. I know it may seem like the answer is simple, but you and I are kind of in the weeds when it comes to this topic, especially. But what would you say some of the book banning trends of the last 10 years or recently have been, and how the kind of landscape has changed? And how does it impact you in the publishing space?
Well, thank you, Joe, for that question. It's a good one because I think people don't realize how it has changed. Prior to this, it was really focusing in on where you would have a school system or a library would go through and have a book challenged and be one or two titles, and that would be very isolated incident. What's changed in the past 3 years has been legislation that has been enacted. And this legislation, which has been punitive against librarians and educators, particularly, is a unique characteristic that goes back to the 1880s and the 1800s, early 100s, where the laws will be passed to whenever if somebody taught a Black person to read. I think it was Arkansas or Missouri that had a law. Arkansas, I think, had a law that basically, if you taught a Black person to read, that you would have your hands cut off. So so you have to understand that book banning has been around for centuries, millennia. You can even say that long. It's been around. It's a way in which governments use to control the populace, and you control people best through knowledge. And by doing that is being both afraid of people acquiring that knowledge, but also from people from acquiring new thoughts or being able to think for themselves.
To challenge the status quo,
Correct.
Right.
So that's what's different.
It's definitely different. I think the other thing to really point out there is the volume. I mean, I said in the intro that we are seeing more book bans now than during the Red Scare and McCarthyism. Like that's the last most recent time we can look at. But it comes down to volume. You were saying 1 to 2 at a library in a year or a handful of years. And it could be based on maybe when it seemed like we were a little more sensitive, so to speak, of like, oh, this is a tough topic.
Correct.
This deals with assault. This deals with something of that sort, where now it is, there are people who are bragging that they have submitted 100 bans or 100 challenges a month.
Yeah, and that is what's changed. And the types of books also have changed. It's really related to more of the cultural wars. It's really attacking, and the thing that we follow at Penguin Random House this year and last year too is save our stories, because we're seeing histories look to be ignored and erased. And that's what I think is the most frightening thing about it.
Now, this may seem simple, but how have book bans challenged publishing? How does it impact PRH? How does it impact the machine as a whole?
Well, what has impacted us is our authors and the trial and tribulations that they've been going through. So we do receive emails, phone calls from our authors about being doxxed or being ridiculed in person, at an event, etc. So we try to help that and try to think about our authors' security and pieces. What has not changed is our resolve to keep to the ethos of our company, which is we publish books for everyone.
Mhm.
We publish the gambit. You know, we have the art of the deal, and we have Barack Obama. So we have a quite array of different publications that we do. And that has been our strength because we do feel that it's important that all voices be heard. And that's something that we do believe in. So I think that the hardest thing we've had to deal with, I said, is dealing with our authors
Definitely.
and stuff, those pieces. And I think that's the most challenging thing. We have seen sales issues as well. We've
Okay.
heard from librarians, we've heard from educators who have said, oh, we would like to buy this book. Personally love this book, but I don't think I want to buy it. I'm afraid that it will cause an issue in my school or my library, and where I don't have one now, I'm afraid this may. And
Right.
those are the current things. We're also hearing about educators changing what they're sharing in their classroom because they're now going through and looking at it and doing self-censorship. And
Mm.
I think that you talk about, and you talked about the sheer number of book challenges and book bans that are out there. I believe that's only a tip of an iceberg. And I think
Right.
the big iceberg is how many people are going through and doing self-censorship. I was at a conference speaking, did a keynote, and I asked the audience, in their audience, how many of you practice are catching yourself practice self-censorship?
Sure.
And every educator, librarian that was there raised their hand. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone raised
Right.
their hand because they have, and it may have been the state I was in, but two, which affects them because I was in a state where they have a lot of laws that have
Sure.
been passed or being passed. And so there's a lot of threat there. So I feel that for us as a publisher, or challenges are what's happening to our authors and making sure our books are available for all as much as possible.
Now, how do you go about doing that? What are you doing to fight against some of that legislature, both in your work at PRH and with ALA? I've read that you do a lot of work to provide resources to authors and training and kind of help them on all fronts. Can you share a little bit of what some of the ban fighting looks like for you?
Yeah, we just recently had our anniversary 2 years ago. We created the task force that I was put in charge of leading. And the intellectual task force basically had, I would call it, four pillars of concern. One was, first, I said, our employees. We have employees in 44 states. We have employees that are being impacted by these laws, either directly because of the fact they have children that are in schools, or they may be living a lifestyle that they feel threatened from now in
Hmm.
that state that they didn't feel before, or they may be doing their job. Like in Tennessee, there's laws passed now for selling what is deemed to be pornography. So if we have our sales reps selling books and then some local AG decides to do something about it, then where does that put us? So we have to worry about our
Right.
employees. Then our authors, of course, we do. So with our authors and with our employees, we do a lot of awareness training, making sure they understand the laws and how it impacts them in the state in which they live. For our authors and our employees, we've been doing a lot of stuff talking about personal security and basically making sure that they feel safe and understanding that we are there to come to support them. And so what is hard for us is just the sheer scale of this,
Sure.
because you can have some best practices, etc., but everything is in this world needs to be sort of looking at the situation, each situation as it comes up, and dealing with it. So with that is put a stress on us, the task force, to figure out how do we do this and how do we mobilize ourselves to help our authors and our employees as much as possible. So do we do these awareness campaigns, as I said, and first and foremost, making our employees feel like they're a part of something. We did our Band on the Run 5K race for our employees, which was great. We raised over
Oh, wow.
$90,000 for this, and now the company's doing matching funds as well. So when it's all said and done, we will see well over $100,000 being given to the Freedom to Read Foundation, and this all came from our employees, all banding together for this
Yeah.
Band on the Run 5K that we did during National Library Week. And that was a great way to unify our company. Now to figure out how we can expand it. Going into our legislative efforts for a minute, because I think our litigation efforts, people are kind of aware of that we've done litigation, suing the state of Iowa, being the first publisher in a lawsuit in Florida for Escambia, with other partners, and that included PEN America, but also some authors and some other I call regular student plaintiffs who directly are impacted. But we also have lawsuits in Idaho, and then we have the lawsuit in Florida at the state level, which is challenging their 1069 law, the infamous no sex bill. So that is what we're doing now for that, and that is in the courts, and it's long lasting that effort's going to be going through. But I do think it's great to see that we've helped build a coalition in litigation of bringing other publishers in. We started it. We're the ones who initiated it. We're the center of that universe. But what we've been trying to do is gather more satellites around us, because we're stronger together, we feel. I think that for our legislative efforts, we've made a really remarkable progress in a very short time. We have basically, with the hiring of Rosie Stewart, which was a first for a trade publisher, bringing in a public policy expert person in this who works with me, and she and I have been going through a state strategy of getting freedom to read bills worked on and passed. So we had a hand in passing bills in the states of Maryland, New Jersey, and Delaware, where we did everything from actually, helping to advocate for the bill, to testifying for the bill, to actually helping write the language of the bill. And now we are working with Rhode Island, and hopefully to get one passed there. We did about a month ago get a bill passed in Colorado, which was great, and that's wonderful. And we're working hard in states like New York, Massachusetts, Oregon, and also in New Mexico, working with legislators, actively engaged. I'm actually a registered lobbyist in many of these states myself, which is a first for us at Penguin Random House. I have to turn in my quarterly reports of who I spoke to, when I spoke to them, what we talked about, all those pieces for the audit trail. But that thing in legislative efforts is where we really are going. And that's something that other publishers are not doing that I would love to see do. And we've been afforded the fact that we're a for-profit company, that we're involved in this. It's harder for a 501c3 to do this stuff. They can do some lobbying, but it's a very fine line that they have to follow. But I think that where we've seen our strength is building coalitions, and we'll continue to do that. And coalition of organizations like PEN America, NCAC, the National Coalition Against Censorship. I shouldn't do acronyms, and then the of course American Library Association and Freedom to Read Foundation.
It's so impactful for me as well to see that, like, yes, you are at the center of this. PRH is at the center of this, but the goal is to band everyone together, bring everyone together to join in the fight. There's not the like, oh, well, we're doing this because we want to be the first. We're doing this because it's important, because it matters.
It's the right thing to do.
Right.
It's nonpartisan, as I say all the time. The First Amendment is something we all get to embrace and hold.
Right.
It's 47 words, but it's it is the First Amendment for a reason, as I always say. It's not the eighth, it's the first for a reason, because it sets the stage for the rest of the first 12. And in that stage, if you start changing the First Amendment, you inevitably can start changing them all. And then that's where our democracy really starts to falter. And in those pieces, because right now, basically, our Constitution is right now the biggest shield that we have to protect our democracy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've kind of looked at how you are fighting and how other publishers have started to join in with you. What kind of resources are out there for the everyday person? What kind of things should the listeners and the watchers be doing?
I get asked this question frequently.
I
do.
know, and I knew I was at the right person to ask.
Well, some of it is not sexy at all,
And that's
I mean,
okay.
but I tell people first, get involved locally.
Hmm.
That's very key. Know what's going on around you. 2.5 weeks ago, I voted in my school board election, right? Which saw literally thousands of people come out for a school board election, which is not the norm.
Right.
4 years ago. 4 years ago in my district, you could get 100 votes and be elected to the school board. Now we're talking about you have to get thousands
Right.
of votes to get elected because there's a lot of people running. So I say get involved locally. I also let people know to go to your local library and tell the librarians thank you. Tell them how much you appreciate them. Let them know that you realize that they do a lot of work for you and they support you to help you find great things to read, to allow you to learn new ideas, to let you engage in programming that enriches your life or your children's lives. Just say thank you, and say thank you to your school librarians if you are involved with your school librarians. I think those are key things. Join Unite Against Book Bans. I think that's the big, easy thing to do. You can go to uniteagainstbookbans.org and join there. Also, you can go to ilovelibraries.org and be a supporter there. Go to ilovelibraries.org and join. And those are two good things to help in moving forward. With Uniting Against Book Bans, you become part of their network of that can communicate to you and let you know what's going on actually locally and at your state level, what's happening as well. So I think that's key.
Absolutely.
So I think those are some easy things that you can do, and read. I have a Google alert set up that says book banning, and I have my state along with it, and then so it pulls up all the articles around book bans or book challenges that are happening in my state. So you learn how to do a Google alert that makes it very easy because you can and you'll be surprised what you'll find.
That's the truth. A Google alert will always surprise you. But right, I think it's also so important to remember the resilience element, the fact that when you thank that librarian, when you thank the teacher, you're telling them to keep going. We're here with you. We see what you do. It's not just go and borrow the books. It's not just read the books. It's thank the person who's just taking the brunt of it.
It's the truth. And that's the key component. I think that people need to realize that you can make a difference. One person, one
No
voice
matter what.
can make a difference. And making your voice heard by doing a letter to the editor, being that, extra credit points for that, but also reaching out to your local Congress people and your local state level officials and letting them know that you value the right to read, you value libraries, you want your libraries to be funded, you want books to be available to you, that you are not being regulated by somebody else, that you want to be making your own choices. And as I say all the time, if you don't want to check out a book in the library because you're offended by it or concerned by it, then put the book back on its shelf.
Let someone else read it.
You're not required to check it out.
Absolutely. Every book in the library is not for me, but that doesn't mean it's not for someone else.
That's correct. That's correct.
The same way that this may feel too light, but the same way that I talk about being a mood reader, I'm not one who's often going to pick up a romance novel because it's not my taste, but I want the person who I know loves it to have as many romance novels as they can have. That's so simplified of what this is, but that's it. Read what you want to read.
Read what,
And don't be bothered with what other one else is reading.
You.
Yes. To take a moment in kind of a dark shift, what happens when books get banned? Why is this scary? Why is this so important that we're fighting against it? when we lose access, when we lose diverse stories?
I think what is the reality that people are coming to is we all have our stories about how a book affected us, changed us, saved us, redeemed us. Those are the things that we will lose. We'll also lose stories and lose the ability to have empathy for someone else.
Yes.
If you go through and close the curtains to the window that you can look out to, when you go and lock the door that you cannot walk through, when you go and crack the mirror where you can't see yourself, that cause ultimate harm to yourself and to those around you. What's at threat most is the limiting of our possibilities. And that is what makes us great as Americans and makes us great as individuals, is the fact that we live on the hopes of our possibilities. So if you do anything that goes through and blocks them, or as I say, pull the curtain across the window, lock the door, crack the mirror, those are the things that is most harmful to us.
Absolutely. It destroys potential, our own potential, the potential of others. On a happier note, you were
Mhm.
recently made an honorary lifetime member of ALA. What was
Can
that
you believe
experience
it?
like?
I
What a
know.
beautiful, I read every article about it because every time I was just happy, even when they were
Well,
the same info, it was still just like, oh,
yeah, it was the last person who received it was Dolly Parton, so that was a very fun thing too, to have that in that, same
oh,
breath at the same time.
you are
So which
right up
was
there with Dolly Parton, Skip.
my oh, thank you. I I am from Tennessee, so there we share that in
See?
common. See there. But my belief in ALA it's always been stalwart, and I believe in its ideal. I believe in what it does. It's the American Library Association. It's not the American Librarian Association. It is about libraries. It is what's key. So I've devoted a lot of my career and my personal life to propagate the wonderful joys of all things that are libraries, and I will continue to do such. And the fact that ALA bestowed this honor upon me for my efforts on stuff is rewarding. It
Hmm.
is humbling. It's surprising. I mean, it's all of those things. But as I say that, this is really due to the fact that I work at Penguin Random House. I work for a company that enables me to do this work
Sure.
and embraces it and respects it, and they see and feel about libraries the same as I do is a rare thing. As someone who has worked at other companies, um, who's seen it from other sides and stuff, what we have at Penguin Random House, and it came from, it's instilled from Random House at its core early on. And you go back in time to like Bennett Cerf fighting for Ulysses to be published in the United States and challenging the Supreme Court and getting that published, to we have Banta Books, which is part of Random House too, which fought and won and challenged the state of Rhode Island in the 50s and won during that time, during the height of McCarthyism as well. And to see us now doing it again only holds true that we are being consistent with our core, and that's the stuff. So thank you for acknowledging and for being thrilled for me as I'm thrilled about this honor in those pieces. And I just hope that I continue to be able to do the work I do. That is the best testament, and I hope it does inspire others to understand that you can make a difference. I am one person.
Hmm.
And where the differences that I've been able to bring to other people's world has only tenfold improved my own experiences in life. So it's really selfish, to be honest.
But What a great way to be selfish, because it's selfish for you, but for everyone too. I
Well,
mean,
but thank you for
of course.
acknowledging it. I'm very, very appreciative.
I mean, you did incredible work to lead the steering committee to bring exactly how you described it. It's the American Library Association. You brought it to the public, to the people in the libraries as well, and said, hey, you can buy in with us. This is not
Mhm.
an exclusive club. You can be a supporter. The same way that having a library card in your pocket makes you a supporter, you can support with ALA and get resources there as
Or my
well.
Libby app on my phone.
And I promise he's not paid to say that. But that's so true. I mean, access
Well,
anywhere. Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, but looking at the road ahead, what gives you hope in the fight against book bans? What gets you back into it after a rough day?
what gives me hope is getting to speak to students who say thank you, who tell their stories as they testify, and legislators. I've heard a number of students testify for freedom to read bills, also against bad laws as well. And hearing their stories, that gives me hope in the fact that they have that energy and that perseverance in those pieces. What gives me hope too is the work that educators and librarians do each and every day to help people see a new world and to be able to share a new experience that was not of their own. That it gives me hope and pieces, and that's what keeps me going. That's what helps me go to sleep at night, and it also helps me get up in the morning to want to keep on going.
Oh, that's such an important thing to look at and remember. Thank you for that, Skip. Is there anything else, any final message or note you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Just vote. That's very key and pieces. And remember that you need to raise your voice up. There's a lot of great hymnals to sing from.
Yes.
And if you need help finding it, you can go find it at Unite Against Book Bans or the Freedom to Read Foundation. But more importantly, just keep reading. Everyone, please keep reading. Read what you want to read and explore what you need to explore. And I said, you be the best you can be.
Absolutely. Well, Skip, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about book bans.
Oh, Joe, thank you. And I so appreciate all the work that you do and Overdrive does for libraries and for educators.
Thank you.
And just to help lead to the discovery and, of course, the accessibility. But just appreciate what you do and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means the world. Listeners, now is the time where we transition to our next segment. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to the midpoint of the show where I usually give you a Libby tip and trick, just a moment to take a break before the next segment of the show. But before we jump into book recommendations from some of our guest hosts, I just wanted to take a quick moment and give everyone the chance to breathe. I know this is a powerful topic. There is a lot to think of and to digest. And I just want you all to know I appreciate you and I appreciate you for being here. I hope that what we're talking about today resonates with you and empowers you. Just know that no matter the challenge, we will support each other. We are not going through this alone, and we're together as a community. So take a deep breath, take a moment here, relax your shoulders, drink your water. Know that we're not alone. We are in this together. All right, let's get back into it. Next up, some fantastic book recommendations from our guest hosts that you won't want to miss. Well, hey everyone, welcome to our second segment of the show where we bring you some book recommendations for your nerves to blow up your TBR. Joining me are the wonderful Bree and Meara, and we are here to talk about book bans, banned books, and the like. Before we dive into our recommendations, let's talk about it. What's going on? What's going on in your neck of the woods with book bans? How can we tell folks to support? I mean, that's been the through line throughout this episode is me saying like, hey, just checking out things from your library supports the library. It's as easy as liking a library's social media post on their account, or signing up for a program, or borrowing a book. You don't even have to borrow a physical one. It can be digital. And that's not just the guy from Libby saying it. It's true. Circ data is Circ data. But what else can people be doing? Because it's beyond what we expect with just the schools. And sorry, I ask y'all questions and don't let y'all talk. Carmen was going to join us today, but she can't be here because at this moment that we are recording, she is fighting against her school district's book bans. Carmen is in Florida. She shared an article with me. I'll link it in the show notes, so you can check it out. But Hillsborough's Ayers pledges to pull more books after the superintendent, Van Ayers, was questioned and, yelled at by his constituency to be like, you can't ban all of those books. He decided he was just going to double down and ban more books as a response. So Carmen is there right now fighting, which, thank you. So
she's a real one.
She is a real one. So whether you're going to a board meeting, whether you have students in the district or not, if you live in the district, you have a right to speak on it. But you too, book bans. How would you tell folks to support?
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Bree and I both come from Louisiana. So book bans have a deep root where we're from.
Yeah.
Deep. I specifically
Shout out to Amanda Jones in the beginning of this episode.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the Venn diagram is a
Unfortunate
circle
shout-out.
right now.
Yeah.
But this parish that I grew up in, St. Tammany Parish, was one of the ones making big headlines in Louisiana for the last few years about book bans. And it was our public library, not even the school library. So it's important to not just pay attention to what the school boards are doing, what school boards or school libraries are doing, but all of the libraries in your area and going to those board meetings. And I just want to say it is so scary to go up there and speak. I can sit here and talk to my phone or to the internet all day long. And the moment that I step up in front of a crowd of some people that I don't know, no matter how little it is, my heart is pounding. But to just have your speech prepared on your phone is so helpful. And the things that there's a lot of websites and a lot of resources that actually really give you the information that you need to know. The easiest one to remember is bannedbooksweek.org. And then they link to all these other resources. And it's just so easy to remember because we all know about Banned Books Week. So it's such a easy URL to grab.
Yeah, Banned Books Week, Unite Against Book Bans. You can pull book resumes to look at different qualifiers that are compiled to be like, this is what this book is actually about. So you can fight against any of the misinformation, because there are books on my list that the reason that they have been banned in places aren't even apparent in the book. So, but it's the claim.
I found a news article that relates to one of the books on your list, Joe. Can't wait to talk about this.
Great.
But,
Ooh.
Bree, give us your spiel.
So I live in Minnesota, but I am from Louisiana. And I went to pen.org. I pulled it up just to make sure that, I'm saying the right things. But I went to pen.org thinking that I would have, I would look at the map from them looking at 2023 to 2024, and I would find that Minnesota is not a book that has a lot of books that are banned. To my surprise, I was wrong. For it to be such a progressive state on paper, right, there's quite a few of banned books in Minnesota. It's in orange and it's 408 books. I would have thought 0, because there's a lot of states that don't have any book banning. But there is some states like, Louisiana, like we talked about. Florida and Iowa really are taking up that charge on really having the most books banned. But I was really surprised to see that in the year of 2023 to 2024, according to pen.org, 408 books were banned. And I was like, wow. But it also makes sense because even though Minnesota is progressive, Minnesota has a lot of conservative small towns. And I used to live in a lot of those towns. So it makes sense that that would happen. And a lot of people will have a lot of opinions and show up to those, school board meetings or meetings that every county have to talk about things like book banning. So I was just very shocked to see that. I'm never
Yeah.
shocked about Louisiana and their tomfoolery, don't matter what it is. So I'm not shocked about that, but I was very shocked about um Minnesota having 100 to 400 books banned depending on where you're at in the state.
But that makes sense. It's a large state with like lots of open areas, areas
Mhm.
that aren't populated. So the places where votes are happening, it just depends on what's the overall majority there. I totally get it. I mean, I'm in Ohio, I'm in Cleveland, where we have one of the best library systems in the country. And
Mhm.
yet you head to the Capitol and there are things proposed everywhere to fight books. And while we don't deal with bans in our library system here, other library systems are dealing with it. And like there's challenges and there's proposed funding cuts, and like you just don't know.
Yeah, and the funding cuts is it's so messed up to the overall like message that these
Right.
authors are trying to talk to people about usually some pretty important things. When I even looked on the list and just like perusing and seeing like what is banned, I'm like, wow, we're banning a lot of James Baldwin, we're banning a
Mhm.
lot of Toni Morrison, we're banning anything that's queer, that's gay, that's BIPOC, and even on the Pen.org website, it says of the most commonly banned books in the 2003 through the 2024 school year, 44% featured people and characters of color, and 39% featured queer people and queer characters.
Yeah, it's an attack on access, whether it is
Mhm.
access to representation, whether it is access to materials and services. If you take away a library's ability to provide for its community, you kill a part of that community. I mean, there are plenty of people who are dependent on the library for internet to live, to apply to jobs, to do whatever. Like, there's community building. There are so many elements, from the smallest thing you can think of to the biggest, that the library provides. Depending on the state, I have had the pleasure of traveling across the United States and Canada and visiting libraries for the work I do here. And at that, I have gone to libraries where there are social workers who work there to make sure they are working directly to help their unhoused population. If that is of concern in the area, there's also a lot of social workers that tend to be in communities where there is a lot of immigration. So if there are not native language speakers of English in that community, there are social workers who can help those folks get access to citizenship, to any sort of programs to help them join join our country. Like, there's just so many things that librarians do, that libraries do, and this is definitely a negative impact to all of us, one way or another. So sorry, soapbox over. Support your libraries. Make sure you are visiting them. Make sure you are borrowing from them digitally, physically. Go to a program, and if you go into the building, thank the people you meet. Thank the people who are working there. They're dealing with it too.
If I could just give one quick shout out about using your libraries, there are so many things these days that you think are going to cost you money, but is free to you at the library. And the
Mhm.
more of us that use those resources, the better they're going to get funded. Like printing, it could cost me $5 to print at FedEx, like $3 to print at a donut shop, or I can go to the library and get 10 pages for free per day. And like just using the printer and being a feet in the door of the library is beneficial to them. And it's beneficial to me and my wallet.
Yeah.
Yes, you're so
Yep.
right, Meara. Like, the more these services, like, it's not just me saying, "Oh, use it or lose it." It's the need is shown, and then that can feed back into the conversation of like, "Oh, hey, well, printing is up 500%, so we need you to allocate us more resources." Like, there is a benefit to all of this. And if you
Mhm.
didn't know, so many libraries loan out things. I know lots of people online are talking about libraries of things, but that's been one of my missions for years now. I mean, in California, in LA, you can go and borrow a power washer from the library.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you can borrow canoes and bikes and tents. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's there depends on your library, but
I built a
libraries of things.
bookshelf.
See, libraries of things are prevalent. Lots of libraries have seed libraries, so if you want to garden,
Mm-hmm.
you can go and get seeds from the library.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think also like when it comes to like resources in the library, when we were talking about printing, because my library, I think it's like 20 cents if you want to print in color. Like, whoa, and it's 10 or 15% if you want to do black, 10 or 15 cents, sorry, not percent. If you want to do just, regular black and white. But I think that the library has so many resources for us to use as we already iterated. But I also wanted to say that if you got the coin, yoin, yoin, some call it coins. If you didn't understand what I just said, I just realized I had to explain that. If you have the coins, the moolah, the dinero, okay, the hroshi, okay, if you got it, I think it's really good for you to buy those books and have them in your own public library. I mean, your own private library. I know a lot of people are like, I'm buying books and I'm not sharing it because people aren't giving it back. But I buy books because I want to share it with the young people in my life. That's why I buy books. So I just shared a book with my 11-year-old nephew, and I was like, go ahead, take the whole series. You read it. We talk about it later. That's okay. So I think if you have the ability, also, you can also be one of those people that go against book banning by having your own selection in your house that you're sharing with people around you. I think that people think that you have to make macro changes, but micro changes over time can turn to macro changes as well.
1,000%. I put a little free library in my front yard. Like, you
Come on.
you just have to do these little things. Buy your books, support the artist, but also if you have the coins, I will say it. Join your friends of the library group. Support your library directly. Let your voice, let your pocketbook be the guide. So
Also, just because Bree brought up Penn, they join lawsuits to protect books and students and prevent book bans, specifically books that are banned of their members. But you can also donate as a listener, as a member, to help them be able to do that advocacy work. So if we're talking about ways to use your coin to support book bans, that's another organization that's like actually in the fight.
yes, so there will be all sorts of resources linked. Penn America, American Library Association,
Mm-hmm.
Unite Against Book Bans, anything I can find or think of at the time that I am getting this ready to post, it will be there for y'all. But I guess we should give some recommendations, shouldn't we?
Yes.
We should.
Do
Yes.
y'all care if I kick us off?
Go
I-
first.
Go ahead. Go
All
ahead.
these
Live
episodes,
your
I'm like,
life.
I don't even have a recommendation for you. And now I'm out here like, I'm going to go first.
Go
So-
for it.
My first pick is Flamer by Mike Curato. This came out in September of 2020. This is the number 10 most banned book of 2024. And one of the reasons behind it was saying, I believe that they were claiming that there was sex in the book. And there is no sex in the book. There's zero sex in the book. There, trigger warning for this. There is suicidal ideation and attempt in the book. Not a single reason of any of the things in the book, made it to that ban. But hey, what do I know? This is a brilliant graphic novel. If you have not picked it up, you should. This is one that I always make sure is in my little free library because this was so meaningful when I read it. I know I'm not gay. Gay boys like other boys. I hate boys. They're mean and scary, and they're always destroying something or saying something dumb or both. I hate that word, gay. It makes me feel unsafe. It's the summer between middle school and high school, and Aiden Navarro is away at camp. Everyone's going through changes, but for Aiden, the stakes feel higher. As he navigates friendships, deals with bullies, and spends time with Elias, a boy he can't stop thinking about, he finds himself on a path of self-discovery and acceptance. Again, that is Flamer by Mike Curato. Add it to your list.
So
a good
remember when I
one.
said that I had a news article related to one of your recommendations?
Uh-oh.
It's Flamer. In Calgary, in Alberta, which is a city that's close to my heart because one of my best friends is a teacher there. I'm a fan of their NHL team. I go there semi-annually. They are now instituting book bans to ensure, quote unquote, only age-appropriate books are available in school libraries. And this came about because of 4 books: Genderqueer, Fun Home, Blankets, and Flamer. And allegedly, they said that excerpts of the books published by the government to highlight concerns include quotes taken from each and pages of explicit illustrations. So crazy that they are banning this book for sexual explicit illustrations when it doesn't have any. He also, I
feel like I've read it enough times that I would know, but maybe there, maybe there's something in there that I just did not. But
no,
what?
I believe you, Joe.
Like now you got me doubting me.
The education minister. This is my favorite part of this article. It says, he said the government's concerns are limited to graphic images and depictions of sexual activity. Themes and depictions of graphic violence are probably not an issue, he said.
This is a young adult graphic novel. This is listed for young adult. Like, let's be real. The problem is it's gay.
Exactly.
Right? Like the problem is it's gay. So, we're gonna ban it. We're gonna ban it because it's gay. Like
Period.
I also like there are just things that there are checks that have to happen for books to be placed within a specific age category. Like the high level work is already there. Not any publisher saying, "Oh, I won't publish that because of XYZ." But instead of this being young adult, we're going to make it adult. Or instead of this being middle grade, we're going to make it young adult. Like that exists. there are people who are just trying to make sure the right audience is reached, or providing thoughtful edits of like, if you are passionate about this being for a middle grade audience, these are the changes I would suggest you make.
Yeah.
What do I know?
So just
Canada,
crazy that when
come on.
Yeah. So like this is not an exclusive US issue.
Right.
I don't want people to act like it is.
And we're definitely seeing that, like, in my conversation all the way back in episode 2 with Juno Dawson, the book bans and the fights that we are seeing here are also very much alive and well in the United Kingdom. So
yeah, but if you see Flamer on someone's list, let that raise a red flag for you.
Let that raise a flag for you. And again, read it. See if I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments. Like, hey, I agree that everyone should read this, but this is an older audience. I'm 32, and I don't say that often on this show. I'm 32.
I'm your elder.
What I may think of, and I don't have children, so I'm not thinking in terms of like ages and what I think is okay. But
No.
I know what I feel to be right. So anyway,
I think it's interesting how people bring things to the school board. I'm just talking about the school board of, I need to, a parent or whomever, I want to ban this book for this reason. And I think sometimes that a lot of times, I'm going to just say a lot of times, I think people don't think that there are other people who are going to fact check what they're saying.
Right.
That's what I think. They think that back end is not going to happen, because oftentimes when I'm watching people go to their school board being like, why was this banned? What you're accusing it of was never in the book. You have no proof that this was in the book.
I'm going to go read it again tonight. Shoot.
Yeah, then you got to reread it. And then you start gaslighting yourself. Like, wait a minute, I read that book. I don't remember,
I read it a good
so it's
6 to 10 times.
Right. You're like, wait a minute, So I just think it's interesting how people like to be so wrong with their full chest and very loud when people can fact check.
And there's also that level of like, whose responsibility is parenting the child? The parent.
Yeah.
Like, as we said, there's the level of like the publishers approved at this grade level. The schools can have their own set guidelines of where things fall. And then you have to remember that like, you're not the only family in the school. either find a location that, either like have a conversation with your child, heaven forbid, or, find a place to, I don't know, to just kind of make sure your needs are met. But there's a parent in there that wants that book for their kid, that needs that book for their kid, just as much as there's a parent that doesn't want that book for their kid. And both of those kids should have that respected. I'll say that
Yeah.
across the board. Both of those kids should have that respected. So some things are going to have to weigh one over the other.
I found a book banning group's website that scanned in the pages of Flamer that they take issue with.
Okay.
There's no sex scenes. There's no genitalia. There is the occasional bare bum, but this is pencil line drawing, so it's not very
Thank you. Thank you, Meara.
explicit.
Like, I'm sitting here like, have I been, am I wrong?
The
Yeah.
most explicit thing is that there is a scene where the boys are hazing each other and telling each other to finish into a plastic bottle, and whoever doesn't do it has to drink it. And that is it.
And that has nothing to do with the gay characters. That is, again, an important commentary on hazing culture. Why?
And very
why,
gross.
Right. Why fight the hazing when we could say, well, actually, the problem is gay?
Yeah.
Look
And
at
it
me
seems-
trying not to be preachy, and here I am. Oof.
And it seems
No.
like the main character is like navigating his discomfort with that happening to him, which is something that we should model to children and young adults, how to navigate those situations.
Right.
Yeah,
How is a
because
kid
it's-
going to know that, like, I'm not comfortable and I don't have to do this and no one should do this
Yeah.
if they don't see that example?
And also, not to be a therapist, but queer kids
Please.
are at high risk of suicidal ideation, of dying by suicide. These are real things, specifically trans kids. If you
Yeah.
want to go deeper, trans indigenous children are the highest at risk. So for you to not be okay with a book helping them navigate through that, I think that's some internal anti-queerness that you might want to, look inward
Exactly.
towards.
Oh,
Yeah.
Meara. Well, Bree, number one, thank you for that, because exactly, let the actual therapist on this call tell you tell you that
Mhm.
this is an at-risk group, and Meara, thank you for
I could tell you were
just-
stressed, Joe.
I'm like,
I was like, I have
oh my
to solve
God.
this right now.
I was like, have I forgotten a book that I have read
No.
like truly 10 times, if not more?
No.
Anyway, who wants to go next?
Listen, it be like that. I don't mind going, unless Mary,
Bree,
you want to go?
Take
Oh,
us.
okay.
Take us to your next book, or your first book.
Our first book.
One of my all-time favorite books.
Their eyes were watching God. Okay, so when preparing for today's episode, I knew there was 2 books I wanted to talk about. And thank you, Joe, for putting those in. And I was like, okay, so what's going to be the third? What's going to be, do I do James Baldwin or do I do Zora? And the linguistic baddie in me wanted to choose Zora Neale Hurston. So Zora Neale Hurston, to me, is one of my favorite writers of all time, mainly because she has an anthropological background, which I do as well. I have a degree in anthropology as well. And she writes for Black people. So if you are not Black and culturally connected, specifically Southern Black, her literature, it's gonna just really go by your head, right? So this book, Their Eyes Are Watching God, is being banned in so many places because of one of the critiques I had it pulled up was due to it having lack of literary value. And we all know it's because the way that it was written. So if you ever read this book before, it reads in African American vernacular English or African American English. So it was AAVE and now it's African American English, just for anyone who needed to know that tidbit. So this follows a story about this young girl named Janie, and she is marrying this guy. I think his name was Jody, and he was in his 40s. He lost his wife before, I think, and was looking for a wife. And he decided to marry this young girl. And I think she was 17 when she was still a minor when he married her. And he was very abusive to her, treated her poorly. And then you just keep going through the book of her talking about this love that she wants. It's kind of like a coming of age story and how hard it is for her to want things that men have access to in a way that she doesn't. So there's a lot of massage noir in here. And I think that the idea of a book of this much importance being banned just doesn't sit right with me because this is a very real lived experience of so many of my family members, right? I remember my granny telling me her being 13 years old and older men checking for her. It's like, you are in your 20s, sir. You're in your 30s, sir. You're in your 40s. Why are you looking at a 13-year-old? Be for real. You know what I mean? And then this is also in the South and a time where it was tougher for Black women, but just for women in general, your livelihood greatly depended on what a man can bring to you, what that value looks like. So she's out here seeking security in the sense of like, you love me and you care about me and you won't hurt me. But the book really focuses on a lot of the stories of how her community perpetuates these terrible acts that are happening to her, how the men in her life have mistreated her and abused her. And she's just looking for love. But she's also not afraid to ditch out if you treat her bad. She's gonna say something or she's gonna fight back to an extent, right? She definitely has some fight in her. And I just think this is a story of a lot of Black women from this age. I think a lot of our grandmothers can relate to this, can point out people in your family history. And when I'm saying I'm talking to Black folks out there that can relate to the main character in here, Janie. So this is the book that I wanted to talk about. It's also a movie. And there is a difference of how her skin color is described in the book, though, and what Halle Berry looked like. Because to me, Halle Berry is not a passing Black woman. She's a lighter skinned Black woman, but I don't think she can pass as anything other than being a Black woman. But the way she described in this book, she's more lighter skinned than Halle Berry was in the movie. But I love this book. I also will say again that the way that it's written, you have to really pay attention if you are not used to African American English and the way it was spoken and written in this time.
Bree,
It
would
is one.
you? Oh,
Nope,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, Bree, would you recommend that people listen to the audiobook if they're not familiar? Or
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hybrid read, as you can see. I had a lot of thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts. And there were some parts that were just so funny. Like, I just want to just say this insert. So there was one time this man was talking shit to the main character. I just had to say it. She was talking shit. And she was like, I'm a woman. I know what I look like. I look good, essentially. And she was like, and when you pull your pants down, you look like you're older than what you is. I died. I said, not this man coming for you, and you came right back for him. So I thought that was fun. There is some funny moments in here because Black people just, I think we are naturally funny. That's what I just really think that about us, me, myself. But reading this book, there was a lot of fun parts. But I do think for Their Eyes Are Watching God, I think I've read quite a few of her books through audiobook, and they were really good to me. My favorite book by Zora Neale Hurston is called Barracoon. I've read it 7 times, and the audiobook is really good. Their Eyes Are Watching God is really good. Mules and Men is really good. It's really funny. I thought Mules of Men is really good, but there is quite a lot of misogyny. So if you are like, I don't know, I just want to let you know, like Joe was telling earlier about, content warnings, there is a lot of misogyny in these books because it's real. Like, she's writing from real life experiences, and massage noir exists. It exists currently. So it's important that we talk about that.
It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read.
Mhm.
And I read it in high school. I read Beloved for class, and then we had to pick a like a follow-up book for a like final project my senior year, and that was on the list. And I have never been happier about a book I read because of school, more than Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's gorgeous. I mean, three like key moments in the main character's life and a beautiful flow. But also, I just have to address the band you mentioned, no literary value?
No literary value. And the thing is,
For
like,
what? For what? Because
people
that
say
book
that.
does so much. There are so many, like, I understand your point about African American English. I think if that is the complaint folks are coming with, they didn't read the same book I read. Like that, like to me, that is not a good, that is not a reason.
It's
That
not.
is not a good enough answer, because like
No, and it's steeped
the
in racism.
fully, but like
Mm-hmm.
the literary devices, the tools, the things that Zora Neale Hurston does in that book, the time skips, the
Yeah.
perspective shifts, like
Mm-hmm.
I had to
Yeah.
read The Sound and the Fury in the same year that I had to read Their Eyes Were Watching God. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
sorry, but if you're going to claim one has no literary merit, I would elect another. So take that
Yeah.
white man book and
Yeah.
throw
I
that
think
in the
it's
bin.
I think it has a lot to do with how Black people speak. I remember being in college. I mean, not in college, in my graduate program. I think this was probably 2015, showing my age. I was in my graduate program, and this white woman said, "You know what, Bree? You really speak antiquated in an antiquated manner." And I said, "So, white woman, no, no, what the hell? What does that mean?" And then
Right.
in the same conversation, another white woman told me she was unsure how I was going to get a job because of the way that I speak. Yeah. Yeah. So I say all this to say that when people come at Zora Neale Hurston and say that her writing is beneath them, her writing doesn't make sense, it's like, because you're not taking the time to understand it. My ancestors who were enslaved by white folks who decided to colonize a country that already had people, right? We're talking about indigenous people, forced this English language upon us, and we had to figure it out. We had to figure out how to navigate this language that we don't know. And now that we've created our own language from it, which is African American English, now we're the problem. And it's a larger discussion where we talk about the goalpost keeps getting moved. It's like nothing will never be enough if you have a brown face to suffice whatever white supremacy deem is it in that moment. So when people talk about Zora Neale Hurston, I personally feel very attacked by it, because it's just like, is it it's the words, it's how she's speaking, that you are just gonna equate that to a person being unintelligent. I think it's un or unintelligent, whatever the word is. It's English. I ain't got time for the colonizer language. I mess it up all the time. But what I'm saying is, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to be on a rant, but it just like, it hurts my feelings.
Hey, and that's fair. It's hard not to be on a rant in an episode about book bans.
Yeah.
Meara, your first pick. Oh my
Uh,
gosh, you're on your first pick.
I am on my first pick, and it's Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a young adult book that has been banned, I know for sure, in Texas. Akwaeke actually posted about it themselves, this ban, that Pet was getting banned because the main character is trans. I imagine that there's a lot more reasons that it's getting banned. It takes place in a utopian society in Texas where they fought a battle. The angels fought a battle against all of the monsters and demons and bad people, and there's no more badness in the world, or so Jam has been led to believe, until she accidentally awakens a monster from her mother's painting who comes out and is like, there is a bad person, and she has to uncover who that bad person is, and realizes that it is someone in the home of her best friend who is doing something, and I'm trying not to spoil it, that many people probably deem as inappropriate, but something that is very real and very important that children know that it exists and that they are able to articulate it, both if it is happening to themselves or someone that they know and care about. It was a great book. It's a fast read. It's really appropriate for, I'd say, even middle grade to young adult. And I listened to the audiobook. The narrator has this great, deep, grovelly voice. So he does the monster's voice so like hauntingly. It's wonderful. But it's just a really good book about even when you think that everything is great, there's still something that could be happening under the surface, and that it's important to stay vigilant and to confront those literal and metaphorical demons.
Quake A is an amazing writer. I had the privilege of talking to them on the Professional Book Nerds, our former branding, and just so many incredible concepts tackled so thoughtfully. Again, imagine. I wonder why that one was banned.
Mm.
Mm.
A Quickie is awesome because the debt of Vivek OG still sits in my brain.
Right.
It was such a good book. Mhm.
And the parallel between Pet and The Giver. The Giver also
Mhm.
often challenged and banned,
Mm.
but
Mhm.
How dare we
Yeah.
open kids' minds?
how dare
Yeah.
we make kids see the world for all of its possibilities through illusion and storytelling?
How
But
dare we
don't you
ponder
know?
and consider?
Yeah.
How
But
dare
don't you
we?
know we're forcing our kids to be queer?
Right. Indoctrination. It's not opening their minds, it's indoctrination.
Forcing them.
So I've seen more straight kisses than gay ones. Whatever. Just in the media alone. Well, my next pick is the like number one banned book of 2024. It's All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This came out in
No.
2020. In the same list that Flamer was 10, and like hard to even say 10 because there were pairs that were tied for like fourth place and sixth place and eighth place. So like they're all just kind of like banned almost an equal amount, but this is one of the number one banned books. It is a gorgeous autobiography. My brain just short-circuited. This is a gorgeous book. You should read it. Everyone should read it. It's a series of personal essays. Prominent journalist and LGBTQIA+ activist George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue explores their childhood, adolescence, and college years in New Jersey and Virginia. It's a New York Times bestseller, Good Morning America, NBC Nightly News, Today Show, and MSNBC feature story. From the memories of getting his teeth kicked out by bullies at age 5 to flea marketing with his loving grandmother to his first sexual relationships, this young adult memoir weaves together the trials and triumphs faced by Black queer boys. Both a primer for teens eager to be allies, as well as a reassuring testimony for young queer men of color, All Boys Aren't Blue covers topics such as gender identity, toxic masculinity, brotherhood, family, structural marginalization, consent, and Black joy. Johnson's emotionally frank style of writing will appeal directly to young adults. Johnson used he, him pronouns at the time of publication, which is why it is listed as such here. But of course, Johnson uses they, them pronouns now. So keep that in mind. It was a thoughtful, conscious choice from Johnson and the publisher at the time of the written description. So again, that is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. Gorgeous look, a beautiful way to understand intersectionalism, and a gorgeous way to figure out how you yourself can ally to communities that you may not belong to, but participate in and commune with. I know. Why not? Bree, what do you have next for us?
So I'm going to try my best to participate in a thing that's called brevity, but I've never been accused of being brief. So we're going to do what we can. So The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, like so many, I think almost every book that she's ever written is on somebody's banned list. And this is her debut novel, The Bluest Eye, which is like so interesting to think of like Toni Morrison having a debut, but everybody got to start somewhere. But she really was that girl. A slight interlude. If you are looking to figure out the fullness of who Toni Morrison is, I highly recommend her book called The Source of Self-Regard. Now, going back to The Bluest Eye. The Bluest Eye follows a little girl named Piscola, I think. And she is really, 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 really wanting to have blue eyes and be a white person because she thinks that is the standard of beauty. A few moments ago, whenever I talked about it, I always talk about how white supremacy needs to be interrogated. And in this book, we learn a lot about white supremacy and how it uses colorism to uphold its values. And this book specifically was banned also due to some scenes of sexual abuse, which is in the book, but incest and racism because they think it's inappropriate for people to learn that racism and incest happens. Now, for the colorism, just to have a moment of vulnerability, I did pull up a peer review article. Give me a second to get them done to get it. I just had it. So there was an article published in 2007. I know it's outdated. I know we be focusing on 10 years in the past is what people consider to be like, which you can consider to cite. But I think this book has some really good bones. It's called not the book, the article is called The Persistent Problem of Colorism, Skin Tone, Status, and Inequality. And this was written by Margaret Hunter. And I just want to read a sentence. A paragraph. How does colorism operate? Systems of racial discrimination operate on at least two levels, race and color. The first system of discrimination is the level of racial category, i.e., Black, Asian, Latino, etc. Regardless of physical appearance, African Americans of all skin tones are subject to certain kinds of discrimination, denigration, and second-class citizenship, simply because they are Black. Racism is in this form, is systemic and has both ideological and material consequences. The second system of discrimination, which I am calling colorism, is at the level of skin tone, darker skin or lighter skin. Although all Blacks experience discriminations as Black, the intensity of that discrimination, the frequency, and the outcomes of that discrimination would differ dramatically by skin tone. Darker skinned Black people may earn less money than lighter skinned Black people, although both earn less than whites. These two systems of discrimination, race and color, work in concert. The two systems are distinct but inextricably connected. Y'all know I got dyslexia. Fighting for my life. For example, a light-skinned Mexican American may still experience racism despite her light skin, and a dark-skinned Mexican American may experience racism and colorism simultaneously. Racism is a larger systemic social process, and colorism is one manifestation of it. And that is pretty much sums up the themes that are happening in this book. And to reiterate it, it's like, I grew up in America, right? Everyone sees that, thin, light, green, blue eyes, all those things is what people want to subscribe to. And I too was a young girl being like, man, why am I so dark? Why am I so dark? Just trying my best not to be dark. Having people in my community, girl, get out of the sun. Don't get in the sun. So a lot of the things that the community is even telling the main character, Picola, the things that they're telling her is things I've heard myself. I remember highlighting and being like, wow, these are actual things that still exist to this day that I even hear my aunties telling kids who are like 4 or 5 years old. So it's like the perpetuation of white supremacy using the tool of colorism is so strong and needs to be talked about. And the fact that somebody would ban a book that has very real experiences for so many black people globally is really asinine to me. And I felt very seen reading this book, but I also felt very sad because now as a 35-year-old woman, I love every drop of melanin that's just sitting in my skin. If I could be darker, I would. Do you understand? You ain't never taking this darkness away unless I die and, they burn me up, then I'm ashes, then I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, your girl loves her melanin. Amen.
Amen.
You
I will
know,
come in.
one of the book banning meetings that I went to, The Bluest Eyes, was one of the books on the docket. And a woman went up there and she got she was pro banning the book from the library. And she got very emotional and read an explicit scene of the abuse out loud, which, first of all, I was like, how are you going to say that this is inappropriate to be on shelves and then non-consensually read it out loud to everybody?
Exactly.
But she got very emotional because she said that when she was a teenager, that her, or a kid, or young adult, I don't know, her parents would just drop her off at the library. And that is one of the books that she picked up. And she was very triggered by that because that was happening to her at home. And that was just and she thinks that kids shouldn't have access to that because of that reason. And I just wanted to grab her by the shoulders and be like, girl, this is what taught you that something wrong was happening. And it's really important that kids have access to see that, to, like I said about Pet, to know and have the words to tell the adults in their life about something that is happening to them like that.
Yeah, because you never know. Like, even like as an adult, like I remember when I started college and everybody would talk about things and I would be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And people would be stuck. Like, what did you just say? And I'm like, well, where I'm from, I thought that was common. And they're like, girl, no. That is bad. That is abusive. What did you just say to me? So it's like you don't know, and sometimes you have to listen to other people. Sometimes a book. Sometimes you just feel seen. Like, I would have never known I was asexual if I just started reading asexual literature, and I was like, wait a minute. It's giving twin. It's
You
giving
know,
twin. You get me?
This actually leads perfectly into my next book recommendation, because I was going to say that, like, it's, I feel like book bans come in two categories. Either you need to be cis, het, white, average Joe in your band, or it's a tool of oppression and they want to keep information from you so that you can stay down, right? And so my next book is actually Fahrenheit 451, which is in the keep information from people, keep them oppressed, keep them down. And I feel crazy recommending this to people in 2025. I think most people have read this in grade school or middle school or high school. I didn't. I just read it for the first time. And boy, if I tell you that if you haven't read this book in the last 5 years, we've not read the same book. It's time to revisit it, because Ray Bradbury, I feel like, in the same way that I feel like Octavia Butler could just read the writing on the wall and see the future, Ray Bradbury has a very similar skill. So much of what he wrote about, I'm like, Ray Bradbury, you would have hated TikTok and parasocial relationships with influencers. It's very relevant to so many different headlines that we have going on. And so if you haven't read it before, read it. If you've read it and it's been a while, please pick it back up and give it another look, because I think it'll really shock you to your core how much is really related to this, and why keeping books on shelves and maintaining them as they are, because there was even an issue where this book had been revised and those edited copies were mass produced, and then so people weren't reading the actual book as written. It like makes the case for protecting books on its own.
1,000%. 1,000%. Like, if you have not read that book recently, pick it back up. How did you feel, Meara, reading that to like very recently with all of this going on? Like, what was happening in your mind?
Oh, it was like eye twitching all day long. And like I was constantly just posting on my Instagram stories on my personal account. I don't know why I wasn't doing it on my book talk. I think it's because so many of my friends were like enjoying watching this journey for me, because they were like, ah ha ha, I read that in high school. They're like, teehee, you finally get it. I'm like, you don't get it. You read it in 2012. You don't get it. Obama was president. No, we have not read the same book.
For real.
And, there's a lot of them like disappearing people off the street, which we are literally seeing. The threat of nuclear warfare, which just became relevant this past weekend, which is lingering throughout the entire book, and people just kind of continuing their lives as usual while nuclear warfare is happening. I mean, like, I was literally sitting on the bus when I found out in the book that they bombed Chicago. And for those who aren't aware, I live in Chicago. And I literally looked up at my friend. I was like, they bombed Chicago? And she's like, oh, yeah. I was like, I didn't know until me that part.
Wild. Well,
yeah.
We're living in unprecedented times, as they say.
Yeah.
Where
I know
no one is safe.
where no one is safe.
No one.
I know we are running low on time, but I wanted to make sure we all at least shout out what our third pick was. Everyone can read the full description in the show notes. You can borrow it directly in Libby. My next pick is The Magic Fish by Trun Lee Win. It's another gorgeous graphic novel. If you have not picked it up, pick it up. Go borrow it in Libby. Go buy it from your favorite local bookseller. Bree, how about you? What was your last pick that we are just, yep. Look at those tabs. If you are not watching, go to the YouTube now or click over on Spotify. Look at those tabs.
It's so many. This is my favorite book of all time. Anytime someone asks me, what's your favorite book of all time? I will say it till I'm blue in the face. It is Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man. This book will change your life. And I guarantee you've never read any other book like this. This book is comparable to none. To none.
To none. Exactly. And Meara, what's your last, our sneaky round here?
My last pick is The Midnight Lie by Marie Rutkoski. This is a romantasy. And so I feel like it's really different from a lot of the books we tend to talk about in the realm of book banning.
Mm-hmm.
And it deals with a character realizing that she's not heterosexual. And it was my first experience with a queer romantasy character, and her like recognizing of her sexuality felt very similar to my own. And so it was like a very cathartic and exciting read for me. And it's banned for being queer. It was challenged for being queer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you like a romantasy, it's not very long. I think it's a duology. I love it.
Because I'm also over here like, wow, they're even banning romantasy? Come on.
They ain't wasting time.
It
It
doesn't even
wasting
have to be
time.
saying something big.
No.
Right. It doesn't have
No.
to have a big message. It doesn't have to be doing much. Challenges are there.
Yeah.
Well, Bree, Meara, thank you both so much for being here. Any final thoughts before we go?
Can I say the F word?
Yeah.
Fuck book bans.
Thank you.
She really summed it up.
Well, here we are. Fuck book bans. And now we're going to, do the same awkward transition to me in a different outfit doing the outro. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Book Lounge. So many insightful moments to think of with our conversations with Amanda, Kalynn, Pat, and Skip. And I know Bree, Meara, and I yapped to our heart's content about our feelings and thoughts about book bans and gave your TBR a little bit of a workout. Hopefully you had some thoughtful moments with us, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this conversation today. If you're still looking for ways you can help, there are some resources linked in the show notes. Feel free to check those out. It is not an exhaustive list, but it is a lot of what we brought up here today. And remember, supporting your library helps support the fight for the freedom to read. Just by taking the time to sign up for programs and go to them at your library, comment on social posts, and borrow both physical and digital materials has an impact to show how important your library is in your community. Now, make sure you're following and subscribe to the show, because next week I will be talking to Angeline Booley and Carol Lindstrom about the power of Indigenous storytelling. These two are incredible, and we had such a meaningful and deep conversation. I cannot wait for you to hear us talk about the power of and importance of Indigenous voices and the changing publishing landscape for Indigenous creatives. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Book Lounge by Libby on your favorite podcast app and check out the Libby app YouTube channel for our video content. You can also find us on social. We're on Instagram at libby.app. And if you're loving the show, a quick rating and review helps other book lovers find us. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for making space for this conversation. And as always, happy reading. You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in Overdrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonzo. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.